I'm going to tell you what happens when USC beats LSU.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube or wherever you want to download your podcast, the show is always free, and this show always appreciates your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But you know what? This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus, and they're doing it daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com, and you can get started. When USC beats LSU, game one, out of the box, Las Vegas, Nevada, September 1st, Labor Day weekend. You know what I'm going to be doing right after that game? I'll be working, but I'm going to be looking for Paul Feinbaum in the post-game presser if he makes his way out to Vegas for this game. I offered my thoughts on Paul's Lincoln Riley take for some reason during SEC Media Day. Paul couldn't keep Lincoln's name out of his mouth. Really weird. Obviously, when USC beats LSU, he's going to be eating a huge portion of crow, right? I mean, it's going to be served up in his honor. I want to be the guy to present the plate to him. But it also sets up USC to kind of change everyone's perception, right? USC is getting a ton of criticism heading into the season. Some of it's deserved, but a lot of it seems over the top. Like there's some sort of ulterior motive. Like it's agenda driven. It's really weird. I mean, there's so much focus on Lincoln Riley and his lack of defensive prowess. My question is, why is Brian Kelly at LSU getting a pass? Right? I mean, his defenses, going back to Notre Dame, they weren't great. Took over at LSU, and look what happened. And I mean, if we want to take what happened recently, he just replaced his defensive staff, just like USC did, right? Look, this game can go a variety of ways. USC and LSU, they can have a shootout. Trojans can win. I don't know if it scores 48-45, or let's say USC wins 45-40. And same thing could happen for LSU. But let's say USC wins 48-45, 45-40, somewhere in that shootout range, right? A win for Lincoln Riley, is that going to change anyone's opinion? No. It's a win. They beat LSU, SEC, but the microscope is on the defensive side of the ball. LSU is a very offensive-minded team. I'm going to go over that here in a second. Now, obviously, a blowout loss is only going to add fuel to the fire, so we don't want to even explore that prospect. However, what will people like Paul Feinbaum, not to mention everyone else who is unfairly criticizing USC, what will they say if, let's say, USC wins the game 38-24? That's 5 touchdowns on offense against 3 touchdowns. That's a good win. USC holding a team of LSU's offensive caliber to 24 points. Sign me up. So but here's the thing. What's the message? What's the new narrative? Is that a reflection of what USC did? Or will the Feinbaums of the world change the narrative to, well, you know what? LSU is just terrible on defense. They were last year, and it looks like they're carrying it over to this year. So will that be the new narrative? And that, it wasn't Lincoln Riley's Trojans. It's not that they did enough to just squeak by an overrated LSU squad. You know what? Screw those guys, right? A win over the Tigers is going to send a message. Look, USC fans are going to get all geeked out, right? We're going to go undefeated. Hell, you know what? It might even, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you how excited USC fans will be if they beat LSU. Remember, there's a little bit of history between these two programs. They should have met for the national championship back in 2003 when they had split it. So there's been that ongoing fan feud. But assuming USC beats LSU, USC's next game is at home against Utah State at the Coliseum, obviously. 8 p.m. kickoff. A win over LSU might be enough to even get the USC fans to come out for an 8 p.m. kickoff. It'll be on the Big Ten Network. So how excited will you be? I think the networks will definitely want to talk about Coach Riley in a different light. They should. I mean, that's what they do. They always flip the script, turn the page. But that's actually not the message I'm referring to. It's not what I'm talking about. Not at all. I'm talking about the message to USC's opponents. I'll say this right now. As long as USC has learned how to tackle, the new defensive staff will have accomplished half their job, because that USC looked pathetic last year, fundamentally. At least they did up until the Holiday Bowl. If they can hold one of the top offenses in the country below 30 points, I really like USC's chances the rest of the way. Remember, I'm talking about a 38-24 type of victory for USC. Let's go 38-27. Anywhere in that range. So, no, that is not a prediction for an undefeated season. I want to make that very clear so nobody misinterprets what I'm saying here. What I am saying, though, is that there aren't very many offensive juggernauts on USC's schedule this year. I mean, for instance, how much of Michigan's offense is returning from last season's team? You know, the one that scored 36 points per game. We know they replaced most of their coaching staff. Quarterback's gone. Wide receivers are gone. Running back gone. Offensive line gone. Is Wisconsin all of a sudden going to explode for more than the 23 points per game they did last year? Maybe. Doubtful. They'll probably be somewhere within that range. But if USC holds them to that, I feel pretty good coming out of the game with a win. I mean, at least Wisconsin's points per game average was better than Minnesota's. 21 points per game? Yikes. That sucks. Penn State. Okay, they scored 36 points per game last year. I'll say this. If they find a passing game, a consistent passing game, they'll be a serious threat. So there, you got one team with offensive potential with a really strong run game. What about when USC travels to Maryland? Last year, the Turtles averaged 30 points per game. Will they this year? I believe their quarterback is no longer there. Tua's little brother. What about Rutgers? Will they be better than their 23 points per game last year? By the way, question. How will the Scarlet Knights perform when they're playing at 11 p.m. Eastern time? Because, yeah, that USC Rutgers game kicking off at 8 p.m. West Coast. You know, we always talk about, well, what happens when USC travels to the East Coast, they have to play those early games? I just turned the page. I just flipped the script. How is Rutgers going to perform at 11 p.m. at night? What about Washington? Jed Fish, well, he's taken over the Washington program. He left Arizona, right? But Michael Penix isn't walking through that door anytime soon. Neither are any of their wide receivers that were drafted. So is 36 points per game in their future in 2024? Jed Fish is a really good coach. I'm sure they'll be good. I just don't think they're going to be as explosive as they were last year. What about Nebraska? How much better will Nebraska's offense be in 2024 when they come to the Coliseum? They averaged 18 points per game in 2023. I think everybody's feeling good that they're going to be starting a true freshman at quarterback, Dylan Raiola. I think they're going to score more than 18 points, but they're going to have some growing pains. Look, unless Dylan is a second coming, freshmen make mistakes. Again, they'll be better than 18 points. Here's an ironic twist of fate for you. UCLA's offensive guru, who led the Bruins to 26 points per game last year, Chip Kelly, he left Westwood. He wanted to be Ohio State's offensive coordinator. Now, here's the ironic part. Last year, Ohio State scored 30 points per game. That was the 45th best scoring offense in the country. I highlight that for a reason. I'll tell you why here in a second. Notre Dame. Okay, they scored 39 points per game last year. USC averaged 41 points per game last year. They might have hit that number if they didn't turn it over, 5 times against Notre Dame and South Bend. That definitely helped Notre Dame's scoring average last year. Like, I know it's going to be a really small sample size, but if USC's new defense can hold last year's best scoring offense in the country, LSU, they came in at 45 points per game. To half that, I said 24, 27, roughly. I know 22 and a half would be half of 45, but play along. Then, let's apply that USC defensive improvement across the board, right? I think I like USC's chances on offense, as long as Lincoln Riley's the play caller. Miller Moss playing quarterback. I love their wide receivers. I love the skill position players, period. Riley's going to be the offensive guy. He's now working with his second defensive coordinator that he hired, not multiple DCs like one SEC insider wants you to believe. So what will the message be? What will the message to the country? What will they hear? What will they hear when USC beats LSU? Because right now the message is, let's tear Lincoln Riley apart limb from limb. If Ohio State's offense was the 45th best, I said, you know what? I just need USC's defense to be in top 50. If USC has a top 50 defense, they're going to be just fine in 2024. And if they have a top 50 defense showing up against LSU, what's the message going to be to the rest of the country? I have a feeling I know what it is. It's like, oh, crap. USC figured it out. They got both sides of the ball doing what it needs to be doing. That's the last thing anybody in this country wants to see. USC playing competent football on both sides of the ball. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. I want USC to play college football 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I know. Not possible. But you know what? As the playoffs are winding down, that's what I think about, because we're getting fewer games and the sports aren't sporting for me like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all of their customers with a boost or a bonus, and they're doing it daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/locked-on and start making the most out of our summer. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. You're watching Fox Sports, you're on ESPN, you're looking for any type of college football updates on your special team, especially if you're watching USC. But now all of a sudden, someone starts screaming at you and you're turning down that volume. You don't have to do that if you make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel, and it's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the yelling. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, news, and opinions, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Network. Your team every day. Which freshman will be ready when they're told, put your helmet on, strap it up? Okay. I talked about this before, which some freshmen who could potentially be starters by the time the year ends. A little bit different question. Who needs to be ready day one as a contributor, where the coach is saying, you know what, I need you today, not 4 games into the season. I understand you're a true freshman. On offense, it comes down to 3 positions for me. The quarterback spot is going to be handled by Miller Moss, Jaden Mayava, Jake Jensen, Gage Roy. There's no freshman in the conversation, not this year. And unless the bug takes over the wide receiver room, I don't think Xavier Jordan will have to be so much better than any of the sophomores in front of him, let alone any of the upperclassmen. Okay. Wide receiver room, nobody. And Xavier, you don't have to be ready. It'd be great if you are, because you're good. Just saying. Tight end. I can't wait for Lake McRee to be 100% healthy again. Kate Eldridge, Carson Tabarachi, CJ Wood. You got what? 2. You got 4 upperclassmen. I said this before on the previous episode of Locked On USC. The tight end position is the one position on offense where a freshman can find early playing time, right? Especially if they bring their blocking abilities. The room needs someone who is healthy when camp opens and when the first game is played. Someone from one of those freshmen, whether it be Walter Matthews, Joey Olson, who showed out in the spring, Walker Lyons. I think one of them is going to have to be ready. The other obvious spot on the opposite side of the ball is at running back. I know Amarian Peterson and Quentin Joyner are second-year players. Quentin Joyner is a sophomore. Amarian Peterson is a redshirt freshman. I really don't think Brian Jackson, the true freshman, needs to be ready unless the bug hits their room as well. You know how high I am on Brian Jackson. I'm a big fan. Big fan of the entire running back room. Unless the eye bug takes over, I don't even want to say the word. Freshman does not need to be ready day one. So that's it for me on the offensive side of the ball. There aren't any other positions where a freshman has to be ready, snapping up that chin strap. Just not this year. Now, there are some redshirt freshmen on the offensive line, redshirt freshmen, but again, second-year guys. But I will be shocked if any of the true freshmen are going to be called upon. If they are, USC is probably in a world of hurt. So we're looking for the true freshman offensive lineman just to work out, eat, do what the coaches tell you. Just develop so you're ready next year. Now, on defense, I'm going straight to the defensive line. I'm starting right up front. Carlon Jones, all 6'3", 313 pounds. He needs to be ready to play from day one. Not starting, just be ready to play. They need his size. And I get it. That might be an unfair request since he wasn't even enrolled to go through spring camp. But USC needs size up front on the inside, right? That's not a secret. So look, if you're good enough to play now, then let's play now. Ohio State is who, USC beat out Ohio State for Carlon Jones' commitment. Ohio State only recruits the best of the best. The other guy, true freshman, must be ready, Jade Abasiri. Yeah. There isn't time for this guy with his size to get more comfortable. No way, no how. 6'5", 300 pounds. Doesn't look like a freshman. I mean, Literally, USC fans, you're getting ready to look at a younger version of Derek Harmon, the guy that USC went after in the transfer portal from Michigan State. He's not quite, doesn't quite have the girth yet. I think Derek Harmon was in the transfer portal weighing around 320, 330 pounds. Jaday's a freshman. He's already at 300. Give him a little time. But yeah, 6'5", 300 bills, needs to be ready. Day one. And he has a little bit of an advantage over Carlon Jones. He was around for spring camp. He had me bugging eyes. I was like, whoa, he looks the part. Again, I'm not talking about guys who are capable of being, coming in for a play or two, getting some mop-up duty at the end of games. I mean, freshmen who need to be ready to take a role, a significant role. For example, Marcellus Williams, he doesn't need to be ready to play cornerback. He's going to play. He's good. But there's a lot of experience depth in front of him. Lots. Cameron Fountain, he doesn't need to be ready to play. He's good. He's going to play. But again, just like with Marcellus Williams at his position, there's a lot of experience depth in front of Cameron Jones. So these are, when I say must be ready, I'm talking part of the too deep must be ready. Becoming a starter at some point during the season isn't the point I'm trying to make here. Again, being ready right away is the point. I really want to drive that home because there is a difference, at least in my brain. Let me know. Tell me what you think. What other players which other true freshmen have to be ready to play day one? I'm a really competitive guy. And, others may take credit for it, but I want to make sure everyone knows you heard it here first, as well as on wearesc.com first. Often imitated, never duplicated. I'm referring to, pardon me, at the end of my show, at the end of the first segment on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, I mentioned how Jeff Tedford is stepping down as the head coach at Fresno State due to health issues. And I mentioned a defensive lineman's name, Gabriel Lightfoot, played at Centennial High School. He's enrolled at Fresno State, where Jeff Tedford was the head coach. He's stepping down. No one from USC staff has been in contact with him. One, because they can't, not until he enters the transfer portal. If he enters the transfer portal, again, major emphasis on the word if. But I want to add a little bit more to the conversation. You heard it here first. So even though USC staff can't introduce themselves to Gabriel, I do know that someone on USC staff is talking with someone who might be able to shed some light on his abilities, see if he's a good fit. So again, we'll see where this leads. I know this person's opinion is highly valued. Now, I brought up Gabriel Lightfoot because Corey Foreman transferred there. He's familiar with Lightfoot. They played together at Centennial. There was a little bit of overlap. You know who else is up at Fresno State that I didn't mention on yesterday's episode? Should have. Completely forgot it. Sorry. Dejan Lafitte, who was on USC's spring roster. Well, he was before he left. Again, out of the blue. And it makes you think that maybe he felt he should have left, but I can't see USC asking him to leave. Not at a position of need. So that's 3 Inland Empire guys who kind of huddled together up there in Fresno State, right? I mentioned Gabriel Lightfoot because USC was looking for help on the inside for their defensive line. That's the position he plays. Because Jeff Tedford is stepping down, there's that 30-day window that players get if they want to look around. But as each day passes, that window's getting, it's closing. Getting smaller and smaller and smaller. After my episode yesterday, I slept on it, saying, you know what? Why am I getting anybody's hopes up? What kind of impact would Gabriel make if assuming he or Dejan Lafitte or anybody from Fresno State jumps into the transfer portal? What does he bring to the team? What does he add to USC's roster? I know his addition would bring experience and some depth, but like I said, I slept on. I thought about it a little bit further. I say let's just roll with who Coach Sean Newell and Coach Eric Henderson, who they're bringing to the dance. I mentioned a couple of the freshmen in the previous segment. Again, I want to be very clear. This is not a knock on Lightfoot's abilities. I watched him play in high school. I actually watched him train up close and personal when he was working out with giant skills. He's a hard-nosed player, prototypical nose tackle. But is he better than Kobe Pepe, who actually stuck around, who did the hokey pokey with the transfer portal, but said, you know what? I'm going to finish what I started. If Lafitte and Foreman chose Fresno because they knew Lightfoot was already up there, a little bit of familiarity, I can't see him or anybody actually leaving unless, the defensive coordinator and the defensive line coach are also leaving. They're not. Those guys, the guys on defense, excuse me, they're not going to be affected that much by Coach Tedford stepping down. Mostly because the assistant head coach, Tim Skipper, really good linebacker coach, defensive mind. He's going to be the interim coach for the 2024 season. So again, you got a defensive-minded coach. I think it would take some brass balls for anybody on the defense this close to fall camp starting. So you know what, Coach Skipper, I ain't feeling it. I'm going to go look elsewhere. See what else is out there. So with the defensive guy taking over, I have a hunch none of those guys are going to leave this close to fall camp. And again, I just so everybody's clear, there are some quiet behind the scenes inquiring, but it's more about kind of doing a personal background check type of thing. Nothing more than that. So if something does happen, I promise it, you'll hear it either here first or over on WeAreUSC.com first. Again, I mentioned in the previous segment, Carlon Jones, Jade Abasiri. USC recruited both of those guys. USC didn't go after Gabriel. Maybe they should have. But just to kind of remind everybody, these were the offers that he had out of high school. Fresno State, Hawaii, Nevada, Morgan State. So again, I get it. USC needs more experience, depth, inside. No argument from me there. But is he going to play ahead of anyone that's already on USC's roster? That's the question. Let's just take a step back, put on our analytical hats while you watch Locked On. Look, I'm not going to be upset if he does jump into the transfer portal and USC brings him in. But he's not going to be the difference on defense this year. I mean, if we're being honest with each other. Again, I mentioned the news on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, just as a side note, because Jeff Tedford is stepping down. And, instantly people think, ooh, let's raid the roster. And I told you I felt dirty even thinking about that topic. It just doesn't feel right going after another team's players because the head coach is stepping down due to health reasons. College football is already going in weird directions. So I'm hoping some loyalty is still part of it. Again, you want to hear something first? You come to Locked On USC. Get on over to weareusc.com when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every day. I'll be back again with another episode tomorrow. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.